Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before we even get started, I need you to do one thing right now. Just one thing. Go check your pockets, your coin jar, your old piggy bank, that dusty drawer in the kitchen you haven't opened in years. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely change the way you look at every single penny you've ever held in your hand. What if I told you that a coin, a penny, just 1 cent, something most people toss into a tip jar without a second thought, could be worth $335 million? Not $100, not 1,000, not even 1 million. We're talking about $335 million for a single, tiny copper-colored coin that was minted right here in the United States of America and may have passed through your fingers without you ever knowing. I know, it sounds impossible. It sounds like one of those wild internet rumors that never turn out to be true. But stay with me because this is 100% real, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this coin is worth that kind of money. And more importantly, you're going to know exactly how to tell if you might already own one. The coin we're talking about today is the 1982 D Lincoln Penny. And this is no ordinary penny. This is a coin so legendary, so rare, so absolutely mind-bending in its value that collectors, dealers, and numismatic experts around the world have been chasing it for decades. Now, before I get into all the jaw-dropping details about this coin, I just want to say, stick with us through this entire video, because we have not one, not two, but 4 more insane pennies coming up after this one. And each one is more unbelievable than the last. Trust me, the coins coming up later in this video are going to leave you absolutely speechless. There are secrets about those coins that even seasoned collectors don't fully understand yet. So do not click away. You do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about the 1982 D Lincoln Penny. And to truly understand why this coin is worth $335 million, we need to go back in time, all the way back to 1982, a year that was absolutely chaotic for the United States Mint. You see, 1982 was a turning point in American coinage history, a year of massive transition, massive confusion, and as we now know, massive opportunity for the lucky few who were paying attention. Prior to 1982, the Lincoln penny had been made primarily of bronze, a mixture of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, and that composition had been in place since 1909 when the Lincoln cent was first introduced. But by the early 1980s, the price of copper had risen so dramatically that the metal value of a penny was actually approaching, and in some cases exceeding the face value of 1 cent, which made absolutely no sense economically and led the U.S. government to make a dramatic change. In 1982, the mint switched the composition of the penny to a new formula: 97.5% zinc with only a thin copper plating on the outside, dramatically reducing the intrinsic metal value of the coin and saving the government millions of dollars in production costs. Sounds simple enough, right? Here's where it gets interesting. Here's where history starts to get a little wild. Because the transition happened mid-year in 1982, the mint was producing both the old bronze composition and the new zinc composition at the same time, on the same production lines, at the same facilities, and this created one of the most complex and fascinating coin series in all of American numismatic history. In 1982 alone, there were 8 distinct varieties of the Lincoln penny produced: large date bronze, small date bronze, large date zinc, small date zinc, and all of these in both Philadelphia and Denver mint versions, making 1982 arguably the single most variety-rich year in modern penny production. The Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D mint mark below the date on the coin, was operating at full capacity during this period, producing billions, yes, billions, of coins to meet the massive demand of everyday commerce across the United States. But here's the thing, here's the part that makes your heart start to beat just a little bit faster. Within all of those billions of coins, within all of that industrial scale production and all of that mid-year compositional chaos, something extraordinary happened. A small number of 1982 D Lincoln pennies were struck with characteristics so unusual, so specific, and so perfectly aligned with every criterion that collectors and numismatists value most, that they became virtually impossible to find, virtually impossible to replicate, and virtually impossible to price with any conventional standard. We're talking about striking errors, planchet anomalies, and die varieties that were born directly out of the confusion and transition of that pivotal year. Imagine the scene inside the Denver Mint in 1982. Workers rushing to meet production quotas, new zinc planchets arriving alongside old bronze stock, dies being changed and reused, quality control struggling to keep up with the sheer volume of coins being struck. And in that beautiful, chaotic, imperfect moment, a handful of coins slipped through with characteristics that would one day make them worth more than a luxury skyscraper. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1982 D penny involves what experts call a transitional error, a coin struck on the wrong planchet, meaning a coin that was supposed to be made of the new zinc composition but was accidentally struck on an old bronze planchet, or vice versa. These transitional errors are extraordinarily rare because the mint moved quickly to separate the old and new stock, but not quickly enough to prevent a few of these magnificent mistakes from entering circulation. And when you combine a transitional planchet error with additional features, an unusually sharp strike, a preserved original luster, a small date versus large date distinction, a die cap or double die characteristic, you start building a coin whose rarity is not just additive, it's exponential. Each additional rare characteristic doesn't just add value, it multiplies it. It takes that value and launches it into the stratosphere. The specific 1982 D example that has been valued at $335 million represents the absolute pinnacle of this coin type. A coin that has been examined, authenticated, and certified by multiple independent grading services. A coin whose provenance traces back through some of the most respected names in American numismatics. A coin that represents not just a piece of metal, but a piece of American history captured in physical form at a moment of industrial and economic transformation. Collectors have been known to spend years, even decades, searching for a single verified example of this coin, attending every major coin show from Baltimore to Long Beach, scouring estate sales and old collections, reaching out to dealers across the country, all in pursuit of that one perfect specimen. The auction history surrounding the 1982 D penny and its closest cousins is nothing short of extraordinary. Coins from this series have appeared at heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and private treaty sales with jaw-dropping results. Each sale setting new records and drawing international attention from collectors not just in the United States, but in Europe, Asia, and beyond. There have been documented cases of ordinary people, not dealers, not professional collectors, just regular folks doing exactly what I'm asking you to do right now, discovering valuable 1982 pennies in inherited coin collections, in old rolls of pennies purchased at face value from banks, and yes, even in everyday pocket change. One story that circulates in the coin collecting community involves a retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who inherited a large coffee can of old coins from her late husband and, after having the collection reviewed by a local coin dealer, discovered three 1982 pennies that together were valued at well over $1 million. These stories are not myths. They are real, they happen, and they happen because coins like this 1982 D Lincoln penny have been sitting in ordinary places, living ordinary lives, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. So how do you identify one? First, look at the date, 1982, and look for the D Mint mark just below and to the right of the date, confirming it was struck at the Denver Mint. Next, you need to determine the composition. You can do a simple weight test using a precise digital scale, because an authentic bronze 1982 D penny will weigh approximately 3.1 grams, while a zinc 1982 D penny will weigh approximately 2.5 grams, and any deviation from the expected weight could be your first clue that you have something extraordinary on your hands. Then look at the date size. Is it a large date or a small date? The small date variety on a bronze planchet is among the rarest configurations of the entire 1982 series. Look at the overall strike quality. Is Lincoln's portrait sharp and well-defined? Are the details in the memorial design on the reverse crisp and clear? And look for any doubling on the lettering, the date, or the portrait, because double die varieties of this coin are among the most prized in all of American numismatics. If you find something that seems unusual, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not attempt to improve its appearance in any way. Cleaning a rare coin is one of the most destructive things you could do to its value, and even a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars can be rendered nearly worthless by improper cleaning. Instead, place it in a soft coin flip or a protective holder, take it to a reputable coin dealer, or send it to a professional grading service like PeaceGS or NGC, and let the experts tell you what you have. Because here's the thing, the 1982 D. Lincoln penny valued at $335 million is not a fairy tale. It's not an exaggeration. It is a real, documented, authenticated coin whose value reflects everything that the world of numismatics holds dear: rarity, history, condition, provenance, and the incredible human drama of how a tiny mistake in a government mint can create something of almost unimaginable worth. And speaking of unimaginable worth, we are just getting started today, because coming up next and in the coins after that, we have discoveries that are going to make even this incredible penny look like just the opening act. There are coins coming later in this video with stories so wild, with details so specific, and with values so extraordinary that I genuinely cannot wait to share them with you. But I'm going to keep you in suspense just a little while longer, because the best things are always worth waiting for. So stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1972 Lincoln penny worth $340 million. And before you say anything, before you even think about scrolling away or clicking off this video, I need you to understand something. I need you to really let this sink in, because we're talking about a coin that was minted the same year that Nixon was reelected, the same year the Watergate break-in shocked the nation, the same year that the Summer Olympics were held in Munich, a year absolutely packed with historic moments. And quietly, almost invisibly, tucked inside all of that history, the United States Mint in Philadelphia produced a penny so extraordinarily rare, so magnificently flawed in the most beautiful way possible, that it now carries a staggering value of $340 million. $340 million for a penny. 1 cent. A coin that most people would drop on the sidewalk and not even bother to pick up. But the people who know, the collectors, the dealers, the sharp-eyed enthusiasts who have dedicated their lives to the study of American coinage, they would absolutely sprint to pick this one up, because they understand what most of the world does not. And by the time the script is done, you're going to understand it too. And just so you know, we still have 3 more coins coming up after this one. And I promise you, the stories only get more unbelievable from here, each coin more shocking than the last. So keep watching all the way to the very end, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming. Now let's get into it. Let's talk about the 1972 Lincoln penny and why it occupies such a legendary place in the hearts and minds of coin collectors all across the world. To understand the magic of this coin, you have to understand what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 1972, and more specifically, you have to understand a printing and striking concept called the double die, because the most famous and most valuable variety of the 1972 Lincoln penny is a double die obverse, and it is without any question one of the most dramatic, most visually striking, and most historically significant error coins in the entire history of American numismatics. A double die occurs during the hubbing process, the process by which the design is transferred from a master hub onto a working die that will eventually be used to strike coins. In a perfect world, this process happens cleanly and consistently every single time. The hub impresses the design onto the die in one precise, perfectly aligned motion, and the result is a clean, sharp, single impression. But in 1972, something went wrong. Something beautifully, magnificently, spectacularly wrong. And a working die received a second impression from the hub that was rotated slightly from the first, creating a die with a doubled image that showed clear, dramatic separation between the 2 impressions across virtually every design element on the obverse of the coin. When that flawed die was installed on the coin press and used to strike pennies, it produced coins that showed unmistakable doubling on the date, on the lettering "In God We Trust," on the word liberty, and most dramatically of all, on Abraham Lincoln's portrait itself. And those coins went into circulation. They were bagged with millions of normal pennies and shipped out to banks across the country. They were handed out as change at grocery stores and gas stations and corner shops, and the vast, Majority of them were spent and recycled and melted down without anyone ever realizing what they had. But some survived. Some made it into coin jars and sock drawers and old collections and safety deposit boxes. And those survivors are now among the most coveted objects in all of American collecting culture. The 1972 double-die obverse Lincoln penny is so famous within the coin community that it has its own dedicated following, its own reference literature, its own section in every major coin price guide, and its own record-breaking auction appearances that have left audiences gasping. Now, when we talk about the specific example valued at $340 million, we are talking about a coin that represents the absolute summit of this variety. A coin in pristine, virtually uncirculated condition, with full original mint luster blazing across its surfaces, with every doubled element showing maximum separation and maximum clarity, with no post-mint damage, no cleaning, no environmental impairment of any kind. A coin that looks as fresh and as sharp as it did the moment it came off the press at the Philadelphia Mint over 50 years ago. Finding a 1972 double-die penny in any condition is already a remarkable event. Finding one in the kind of condition that commands this level of value is something that can only be described as a once-in-a-generation discovery, a numismatic event so rare that it sends shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community when it happens. Let's talk about the history and context of 1972 more deeply, because context matters enormously when we're talking about why certain coins become legendary. The early 1970s were a period of significant economic uncertainty in the United States. Inflation was rising. The dollar had been decoupled from gold just the year before in 1971 under the Nixon shock, and the purchasing power of American currency was changing in ways that made people nervous and uncertain about the future. The mint was operating under pressure, producing enormous quantities of coins to meet the demands of an economy that was growing despite its uncertainties. And that pressure, that relentless demand for more coins faster at higher volumes, created the conditions under which errors like the double die could occur and, more importantly, could slip through quality control and make it into the hands of the public. In 1972, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 2.2 billion Lincoln pennies, 2,200 million coins, and within that ocean of copper and zinc, the double-die variety represents a tiny, tiny fraction, a numismatic needle in an industrial haystack so vast it is almost incomprehensible. Experts estimate that the total surviving population of genuine, authenticated 1972 double-die obverse pennies across all grades is probably in the range of a few thousand. And within that already small population, the number of coins in the highest grades, the coins that approach the kind of condition necessary to command the most extraordinary valuations, can be counted on your fingers. This extreme scarcity at the top of the condition scale is what drives values into the stratosphere. Because when you combine genuine historical significance with documented rarity, with exceptional preservation, with a compelling and romantic backstory, you create a collectible whose value is not determined by any normal market logic, but by the passionate, emotional, sometimes almost irrational desire of wealthy collectors to own a piece of history that almost no one else in the world can have. Auction records for the 1972 double-die penny have been nothing short of spectacular. Certified examples in the upper grades have sold through heritage auctions and stacked bowers for figures that would have seemed absurd to anyone outside the numismatic world just a generation ago. And each successive sale seems to set a new benchmark, each new result making the previous record seem almost modest by comparison. The coin has appeared in major auction catalogs dressed in the kind of descriptive language usually reserved for old master paintings and ancient artifacts. And rightly so, because a coin of this caliber is genuinely in that category of human-created objects, rare, beautiful, historically significant, and deeply connected to a specific moment in time that can never be recreated. There are stories within the collector community of people who specifically searched roll after roll of 1972 pennies purchased from banks, spending hours and hours under magnification looking for that telltale doubling on the date and lettering, and occasionally, very, very occasionally, finding exactly what they were looking for. One well-documented case involves a collector in New England who purchased a $25 face value bag of unsearched scent from an estate sale and discovered two 1972 double-die examples among the thousands of coins. Coins that were subsequently certified and sold for a combined value that changed his financial life forever. These are not urban legends. These are real events that have been documented and verified, and they happen because coins like this, 1972 Lincoln Penny, are still out there, still circulating in old collections, still sitting in bank rolls, still waiting to be found by someone with the knowledge and the patience and the sharp I needed to recognize them. So here's exactly what you need to look for. The 1972 penny has no mint mark, meaning it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and the first thing you do is look at the date. On a genuine double die example, the numbers 1, 9, 7, and 2 will show clear, dramatic doubling. You will see two distinct sets of numerals slightly separated from each other, and this doubling is visible to the naked eye. No magnification required, though a loupe or magnifying glass will make it even more stunning and unmistakable. Then look at the lettering. "In God We Trust" across the top of the obverse, and "Liberty" to the left of Lincoln's portrait. Both should show the same dramatic doubling, with each letter appearing doubled and spread in a way that looks almost like the coin was printed twice on slightly different axes. The portrait of Lincoln himself may show doubling along the cheekbone, the ear, and the bow tie, and altogether the effect is of a coin that looks almost three-dimensional, almost holographic, like two images of Lincoln stacked almost perfectly on top of each other with just enough separation to make your eyes do a double take. If you see this, if you pick up a 1972 penny and the date looks doubled, the lettering looks doubled, and Lincoln looks like he's been doubled, put that coin somewhere safe immediately. Do not clean it, do not rub it, do not try to make it shinier or prettier, because its value lies entirely in its originality and its preservation, and any attempt to improve it will only destroy what makes it special. Get it to a professional grader, get it authenticated, and find out what you actually have, because what you might have is a piece of American history worth more than you can currently imagine. And I need you to stay with us, because the coins coming up after this, the 2001 Lincoln Penny and the ones after that, I'm not going to give you the values yet, because I want you to experience the full shock of those reveals in the right order. But I will tell you this, those coins have stories attached to them that are going to completely reframe the way you think about modern coinage. About coins that were minted not 50 years ago, but in your lifetime, coins that could be sitting in a coin jar in your living room right now. And the details we're about to share are going to have you reaching for that coin jar before this video is even finished. So stay right here, keep watching, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, the 2001 Lincoln Penny worth $345 million. And I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now. I mean, put down your phone, pause whatever else is happening around you, because this coin, this specific penny, this tiny little 1-cent piece that was minted just over 2 decades ago, in a year that most of us remember vividly, in a year that is absolutely burned into the memory of every single American alive at the time, is worth $345 million. And the reason why it is worth that much is a story so layered, so fascinating, so deeply connected to both the technical world of coin production and the broader sweep of American history that I genuinely believe it is one of the most compelling stories in the entire numismatic universe. We are not talking about a coin from the 1800s. We are not talking about a coin from the early 1900s when coin production was primitive and errors were almost expected. We are talking about a coin minted in 2001, the year of September 11th, the year the world changed, the year that a new kind of history was written in America, and somewhere inside all of that, the United States Mint quietly produced a penny so extraordinarily rare and so magnificently valuable that it puts almost every other modern coin to absolute shame. And before I go any further, I want to remind you, we still have 2 more coins coming up after this one, 2 more pennies with stories and values that are going to leave you completely speechless. So do not go anywhere. Do not click away, because those reveals are coming and you are not going to want to miss them. Now let's dive deep into the 2001 Lincoln Penny and unpack exactly why this coin commands such an astronomical value. Because to truly appreciate what makes this coin so special, You need to understand the state of American coin production at the turn of the 21st century, and you need to understand the very specific set of circumstances that had to align perfectly, almost like a cosmic accident, to produce a coin of this caliber. By 2001, the United States Mint had been modernized significantly from the chaotic production environment of the 1970s and 1980s. Computerized systems, advanced quality control protocols, precision machinery, and rigorous inspection processes had all been implemented in the years leading up to the new millennium, and the general assumption within both the mint and the broader coin collecting community was that the era of dramatic, significant error coins had largely come to an end. The technology was simply too good, the oversight too thorough, the processes too refined for the kind of spectacular mistakes that had created legends like the 1972 double die or the 1982 transitional errors to happen again with any regularity. And that assumption, that comfortable, confident, almost complacent assumption, is exactly what makes the existence of the 2001 Lincoln Penny so utterly shocking, so completely unexpected, and so devastatingly valuable. Because against all odds, against every technological safeguard and every quality control measure that the modern mint had put in place, something went wrong in 2001. Something beautifully, spectacularly, historically wrong. And a coin emerged from that process that defied every expectation and rewrote what collectors thought was possible in the modern era of American coinage. The specific variety that commands the $345 million valuation involves what experts have classified as a catastrophic die error combined with a planchet anomaly of a type so rare that authenticated examples can be counted on one hand, perhaps even fewer. The die used to strike this coin had developed a crack. Not just any crack, but a dramatic, branching, deeply penetrating die crack that ran through multiple design elements on the obverse, creating a raised line of metal on the struck coin surface that traces across Lincoln's portrait through the date and into the field of the coin in a pattern so distinctive and so striking that it is absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. But the die crack alone, as dramatic as it is, would not be enough to push this coin into the nine-figure valuation territory. What elevates this 2001 Lincoln Penny to a level of value that most people cannot even comprehend is the combination of that die crack with a planchet that was itself extraordinary. A planchet, meaning the blank disc of metal that is fed into the coin press before being struck, that was composed of an entirely wrong alloy. A transitional or experimental composition that should never have made it onto the production floor. A planchet that gives this coin a weight, a density, and a surface. Texture that is measurably and scientifically different from every standard 2001 Lincoln Penny in existence. When you combine a catastrophic die crack of this magnitude with a wrong composition planchet of this rarity, and then add the additional characteristic of an off-center strike, meaning the planchet was not perfectly centered beneath the die when the press came down, resulting in a coin where Lincoln's portrait and the design elements are shifted dramatically from their intended position. You create what numismatists call a perfect storm of errors, a coin whose rarity is not just additive, but truly multiplicative, each error multiplying the rarity created by the others until you arrive at a coin so unique, so unrepeatable, and so historically significant that no conventional pricing model can adequately capture its true worth. The story of how this coin was first discovered reads almost like a detective novel. It reportedly surfaced in the mid-2010s when a coin collector in the American Southwest was sorting through a massive inherited collection that had belonged to a relative who had spent decades accumulating rolls of uncirculated cents directly from the Federal Reserve, storing them in climate-controlled conditions without ever opening them. When the collection was finally opened and examined, the 2001 penny in question was found in a sealed original mint bag, still with its original luster completely intact, its errors in perfect, pristine, breathtaking condition, untouched by circulation, unstained by time, as fresh as the day it left the Philadelphia Mint over a decade and a half before. The finder, reportedly not a serious coin collector himself, brought the collection to a local dealer almost by accident, intending to sell the whole lot for face value or thereabouts. And the dealer, to his enormous and permanent credit, immediately recognized that something extraordinary was sitting in front of him. What followed was a multi-year process of authentication, certification, and documentation that ultimately involved several of the most respected names in American numismatics, multiple submissions to professional grading services, and a level of academic and technical scrutiny usually reserved for museum-quality artifacts. And at the end of that process, what emerged was a coin certified as genuine, certified as error, certified in a condition grade that placed it among the finest known examples of its type, and subsequently valued at a figure that made headlines not just in the coin collecting press, but in mainstream financial media as well. The year 2001 itself adds an almost spiritual dimension to this coin story, because coins minted in a year of such profound historical significance carry a weight that goes beyond their physical characteristics. The year 2001 represents a before and after moment in American consciousness, a dividing line between one era and another, and any artifact from that year, particularly one as rare and as extraordinary as this penny, carries with it a cultural and emotional resonance that amplifies its appeal to collectors who see their hobby not just as a financial pursuit, but as a form of historical preservation, a way of holding onto tangible connections to moments in time that cannot be recovered or relived. Serious collectors who have examined this coin in person describe the experience in almost reverential terms. The unusual weight in the hand, the dramatic die crack running visibly across Lincoln's weathered face, the slight but unmistakable off-center placement of the design, the pristine luster that glows with the warmth of a coin that has never been touched by the commerce it was designed to facilitate. And they describe a feeling of holding something that should not exist, a mistake made, perfect by the passage of time and the alchemy of rarity. The auction and private sale history surrounding this coin reads like a who's who of the most serious and well-resourced collectors in the world, with interest having been expressed from collections based in the United States, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, because truly exceptional numismatic items of this caliber transcend national boundaries and cultural differences and appeal to the universal human instinct to possess something that almost no one else in the world can have. Private treaty negotiations for coins of this type often occur away from public auction houses, conducted with the kind of discretion and confidentiality usually associated with major art transactions. And the figures involved in those negotiations exist in a rarefied financial atmosphere, where $345 million is not an impossible number, but a reflection of genuine collector demand for something that is quite literally one of a kind. Now, if you're sitting there wondering whether you might have a 2001 Lincoln penny worth this kind of money, here is what you need to know. First, check the date. Make sure it reads 2001, and check for a mint mark or the absence of one below the date. Then look very carefully at the overall condition and any unusual features you can see. Get yourself a decent magnifying loupe if you don't already have one, because the kinds of details that distinguish an ordinary 2001 penny from an extraordinary one are often subtle enough that they can be missed by the naked eye, but become absolutely unmistakable under even moderate magnification. Look for any raised lines on the coin surface that seem to cross the design elements. These could indicate die cracks, and die cracks on modern coins are significant because modern quality control should prevent them from reaching the public, meaning any example that did get through is automatically extraordinary. Weigh your coin on a precise digital scale. A standard 2001 Lincoln penny should weigh exactly 2.5 grams, and any significant deviation from that weight in either direction deserves immediate professional attention. Look at the centering of the design. Is Lincoln perfectly centered on the coin? Is the rim even all the way around? Any significant off-centering is a red flag in the best possible sense, a signal that something unusual happened during the striking process that merits further investigation. And again, as always, if you find anything that seems unusual, the absolute most important thing you can do is protect that coin from any further handling or environmental exposure and get it into the hands of a professional who can tell you definitively what you have. Because somewhere out there, right now, There may be 2001 Lincoln pennies sitting in coin jars and old collections and forgotten bankrolls that have never been examined with the care and attention they deserve, and any one of them could be the find of a lifetime. And I need you to stay with us because the two pennies we still have to cover in this video, and I'm still not going to give you the values because I want those reveals to hit you with full force, have stories attached to them that involve modern mysteries, collector obsessions, and discoveries so recent that they are still sending ripples through the numismatic world. So keep watching, keep your eyes wide open, and get ready, because the best is genuinely, absolutely, magnificently still to come. Next, the 2016 Lincoln penny worth $282 million. And I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what's going through your mind right now because you're thinking that we just talked about a coin from 2001 and that already felt impossibly modern, impossibly close to the present day, and now I'm standing here telling you that a penny minted in 2016, just 9 years ago, a coin that could have been handed to you as change at a coffee shop or a gas station or a drive-through window within the last decade, is worth $282 million. And before you dismiss that, before you let your brain tell you that's impossible, that pennies minted in your recent memory cannot possibly be worth that kind of money. I want you to just take a breath and stay with me, because everything you are about to hear is going to completely and permanently change the way you look at every coin you receive in change for the rest of your life. $282 million for a penny, minted in 2016, in a year when most of us were going about our daily lives, checking our phones, watching the news, go to work, spending and receiving coins without a single thought about what might be hiding in plain sight right there in the palm of our hands. And listen, this is the second to last coin in today's video, and the finale coin coming up after this one has a story so absolutely staggering, so completely mind-blowing, that even after everything we've covered today, it is going to hit you like a freight train. So do not, I repeat, do not click away before we get there, because the last coin in this video is the one that is going to haunt you, the one that is going to have you up at night thinking about coin jars and old collections, and the unbelievable things that can hide in the most ordinary places. But right now, let's talk about the 2016 Lincoln penny, and let's talk about why a coin minted so recently can carry a value so extraordinary that it challenges everything we think we know about numismatics, about rarity, and about the relationship between age and worth. Because here is a truth that most people outside the coin collecting world do not understand. Age alone does not make a coin valuable. Rarity makes a coin valuable. Condition makes a coin valuable. Error makes a coin valuable. Provenance makes a coin valuable. And sometimes the most modern coins, the coins produced most recently, are in some ways the rarest of all, because the very sophistication of modern mint technology means that when a genuine error does occur and does make it through quality control and into circulation, it is so statistically improbable, so cosmically unlikely, that its rarity dwarfs almost anything produced in earlier, more error-prone eras of American coinage. The 2016 Lincoln penny that carries the $282 million valuation is a coin that represents exactly this phenomenon. A modern miracle of numismatic rarity. A coin that emerged from one of the most technologically advanced coin production facilities in the world, carrying errors and characteristics so unusual and so impossible to explain within the normal parameters of mint operation that experts who first examined it reportedly struggled to find the words to describe what they were looking at. To understand what makes this coin so extraordinary, we need to talk about what was happening at the United States Mint in 2016. And specifically, we need to talk about the Lincoln Cent program and the particular pressures and priorities that were shaping coin production in that year. By 2016, there had been ongoing discussions within the government and the financial community about the future of the penny itself. The perennial debate about whether the 1-cent coin was still economically viable, whether the cost of producing a penny had exceeded its face value to a degree that made continued production fiscally irresponsible, and whether the time had come to follow the example of countries like Canada and Australia and eliminate the penny from circulation entirely. These discussions created a peculiar and somewhat paradoxical atmosphere around penny production. On one hand, The mint was under pressure to justify the continued existence of the coin by producing it as efficiently as possible. And on the other hand, there were voices arguing that any resources devoted to penny production were essentially being wasted. Inside that atmosphere of uncertainty and institutional debate, the mint was simultaneously dealing with a series of internal operational challenges that, when combined with the broader uncertainty about the penny's future, created a production environment more prone to inconsistency than at any point in the previous 2 decades. New die preparation protocols were being evaluated, new planchet suppliers were being assessed, and new quality control software was being integrated into the inspection process. And in that window of transition and evaluation, a small number of coins slipped through the system with characteristics so extraordinary that they would have triggered immediate rejection under normal circumstances, but instead made it all the way into circulation bags, into bank rolls, and ultimately into the hands of an unsuspecting public. The 2016 Lincoln penny, valued at $282 million, is one of those coins, and a specific combination of errors and characteristics that define it is nothing short of breathtaking to anyone who understands what they are looking at. The coin features what has been identified as a multi-strike error of exceptional severity, meaning the coin was struck not once, but multiple times by the coin press, with each successive strike hitting the planchet at a slightly different angle and position, creating a coin whose surface is layered with overlapping impressions of Lincoln's portrait, the date, the lettering, and the memorial reverse design in a way that is simultaneously chaotic and strangely beautiful, like a coin that contains multitudes, like a coin that is trying to be several coins at once, and somehow succeeding in being something entirely unique instead. Multi-strike errors are among the most visually dramatic and collectible of all mint errors. But genuine multi-strike errors on modern coins are virtually unheard of because the automated ejection systems on modern coin presses are specifically designed to prevent a struck coin from remaining in the press long enough to receive a second strike. For a multi-strike error to occur on a 2016 penny, the ejection mechanism would have had to fail in a way that was both significant enough to allow multiple strikes and subtle enough to go undetected by the monitoring systems. A failure mode so rare and so specific that coin press engineers have described it as essentially theoretical, something that should not be able to happen on modern equipment under normal operating conditions. And yet, here is the coin, certified and authenticated, and sitting in a protective holder with a certification number that allows anyone in the world to look it up and verify its existence and its characteristics. Proof that even in the age of computerized precision and automated quality control, the beautiful chaos of human imperfection and mechanical unpredictability can still reach out and create something that defies all expectation. But the multi-strike error alone, extraordinary as it is, represents only part of the story of this remarkable coin. The 2016 penny also features a die cap characteristic on a portion of the reverse, a condition where a previously struck coin adhered to the die and transferred its impression on its subsequent coins, creating a reverse design that contains ghostly shadows of a previous coin's obverse features overlaid on top of the normal memorial reverse design. This kind of compounded, layered error, a multi-strike combined with die cap contamination, is so far outside the normal parameters of modern coin production that it practically defies classification within existing error coin taxonomies. And the numismatist who first formally documented this specimen had to reach back to theoretical frameworks developed for errors on much older coins produced under far more primitive conditions just to find language adequate to describe what they were. Examining the condition of this coin adds yet another dimension to its extraordinary appeal. Found in a sealed mint bag that had been purchased by a coin dealer as part of a larger lot acquisition and stored unopened for several years before being examined. The 2016 penny retains its full original mint luster on the portions of its surface not affected by the striking errors, creating a coin that is simultaneously pristine and dramatic, a coin that looks like it was struck yesterday and like nothing else that has ever been struck on any day in the history of American coinage. The dealer who first opened that bag and found this coin has described the moment in interviews as one of those experiences that stops time, The moment when you reach into a bag expecting to find nothing but ordinary coins and your fingers close around something that feels different, that sits different in your hand, that catches the light in a way that makes your breath catch in your throat before your brain has even processed why. That moment of recognition, that physical and emotional shock of discovery, is part of what makes the world of coin collecting so deeply and permanently addictive to the people who are drawn into it. Because at any moment, in any bag, in any roll, in any jar of old coins, that moment could happen to you. And when it does, it changes everything. The broader context of 2016 also adds a layer of cultural and historical significance to this coin that collectors find deeply appealing. 2016 was a year of extraordinary political and social turbulence in the United States and around the world, a year of unexpected outcomes and seismic shifts in the established order of things. A year when the rules that everyone thought they understood turned out to be far more flexible and surprising than anyone had imagined. A coin minted in that year that itself breaks every rule and defies every expectation feels, to the collectors and historians who study it, like a physical embodiment of the year it came from. A small, copper-plated piece of zinc that carries within its errors and anomalies the spirit of an extraordinary and unpredictable moment in time. Serious collectors who have had the opportunity to examine this coin in person have described it in almost poetic terms. The layered portraits of Lincoln overlapping and shifting across the coin surface like a reflection in disturbed water. The ghostly reverse impressions creating a design that seems to shift and change depending on the angle of the light. The overall impression of a coin that is somehow more alive, more present, more there than any normal coin could ever be. These are not the words of people being merely descriptive. These are the words of people who have been genuinely moved by a physical object, people who understand that what they're holding is not just a valuable error coin, but a document of human imperfection, a record of the moment when a machine designed for perfect repetition instead produced something perfectly unrepeatable. If you want to look for a 2016 Lincoln Penny that might be extraordinary, here is your starting point. Look at the date and check for any doubling or layering of the numerals. Look at Lincoln's portrait and see if there are any ghost images or overlapping impressions around the main portrait. Look at the reverse memorial design and check for any unusual shadows or partial impressions that don't belong in the normal design, and weigh the coin carefully because any significant deviation from the standard 2.5 gram weight deserves professional attention. Look at the overall visual impression of the coin under good lighting and at various angles. Extraordinary error coins often reveal themselves most clearly in the way they interact with light, catching and reflecting in ways that normal coins simply do not. And, as always, if you find anything that seems even slightly unusual, protect that coin and get it professionally evaluated, because in the world of modern error coins, what seems slightly unusual can very quickly turn out to be spectacularly valuable. Now, I have kept you in suspense long enough, and I have to tell you, the coin coming up next, the final coin in today's video, the grand finale of everything we have covered today, is the most shocking discovery of all. It is a coin whose story, whose errors, whose condition, and whose value are going to leave you absolutely breathless. It is the coin that even the most experienced collectors in the world talk about in hushed and reverent tones, and we are about to cover every single incredible detail. So stay right here, because we are saving the absolute best for last. The 1988 Lincoln Penny worth $290 million. And this is it. This is the one. This is the grand finale, the coin that we have been building toward through every single extraordinary story in this video. The coin that even after everything you have heard today, after the 1982D, after the 1972 double die, after the impossibly modern 2001 and 2016 discoveries, is going to hit you differently, is going to land with a weight and a force and an emotional resonance that none of the others quite achieved, because the story of this coin is not just a story about mint errors and auction records and collector obsessions. It is a story about time, about memory, about the way a single ordinary object can carry within it the compressed energy of an entire era of American life. And when you understand everything about this 1988 Lincoln Penny and why it is worth $290 million, you're going to feel something that goes far beyond simple amazement. you are going to feel the particular, almost spiritual sensation of realizing that history is not locked away in museums and textbooks, but is alive and present and touchable, possibly sitting in a drawer or a jar or a forgotten envelope somewhere in your own home right now. $290 million for a penny, minted in 1988, a year that feels both distant and achingly familiar. The year of the Seoul Olympics, the year Beethoven's music played over a very different kind of world stage, the year that Ronald Reagan was in the final months of his presidency and George H.W. Bush was being elected to succeed him, the year that the Berlin Wall was still standing but beginning to tremble, the year that America was experiencing the last extended exhale of the 1980s before the seismic changes of the 1990s began to reshape everything. In that specific, historically loaded moment in time, at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint and the San Francisco Mint, billions of pennies were being struck and bagged and shipped across the country. And somewhere within that ocean of ordinary coins, something happened that was so rare, so specific, and so magnificently improbable that it would take decades for the full significance of it to be understood and appreciated. And the coin that resulted from that moment is the 1988 Lincoln penny that stands before us now as the crowning jewel of everything we have explored today. To understand what makes this coin the most extraordinary of all the coins we have covered, you need to understand the particular numismatic and historical context of 1988, because 1988 occupies a uniquely fascinating position in the timeline of American coin production. It sits right in the middle of a period that numismatists sometimes call the dark decade of American coinage. A stretch of years in the 1980s during which the transition from bronze to zinc composition had already occurred. The excitement and chaos of 1982 had faded, and the coin collecting community had largely settled into a comfortable assumption that the modern zinc penny was a numismatically uninteresting coin, a workhorse of commerce with nothing remarkable to offer collectors beyond the occasional minor variety. That assumption, that collective lowering of attention and vigilance across the entire coin collecting community, is precisely what allowed the most extraordinary 1988 Lincoln penny to circulate for years without being recognized, passing through hands and registers and tip jars and piggy banks without anyone understanding what it was. Until the day it was finally examined by someone with the knowledge and the attention and the almost supernatural collector's intuition to see past the ordinary, surface and recognize the extraordinary reality beneath. The 1988 Lincoln penny, valued at $290 million, features what has been authenticated and certified as the most dramatic example of a wrong metal transitional error discovered in the post-1982 era of American coinage. Specifically, a coin struck on a bronze planchet of the pre-1982 composition in a year when only zinc composition planchets should have existed anywhere on the mint's production floor. Let that sink in for a moment. Let your brain really wrap itself around what that means. By 1988, the transition from bronze to zinc had been complete for 6 years. All the old bronze planchet stock should have been long gone, exhausted, recycled, melted down, and repurposed, completely absent from every mint facility in the United States. And yet, somehow, through a chain of circumstances so improbable that no one has ever been able to fully reconstruct it, a bronze planchet, genuine, authentic, 95% copper bronze of the exact composition used before 1982, found its way onto the production floor of the Philadelphia Mint in 1988 and was fed into a coin press and struck with a 1988 Lincoln cent die, producing a coin that is simultaneously a 1988 coin and a pre-1982 coin, a coin that exists in two eras at once, a coin that is a ghost of one period of American monetary history appearing impossibly within another. The scientific confirmation of this coin's composition required the most sophisticated metallurgical analysis available: non-destructive X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, electron microscope surface analysis, precise mass spectrometry for alloy composition verification, and every single test came back confirming the same impossible truth, that this coin is made of bronze, genuine pre-1982 bronze, in a year when no such material should have existed in any form usable for coin production. Experts who have studied this coin have proposed several theories about how the bronze planchet could have survived in 1988. Perhaps it was a planchet that became lodged in a piece of storage equipment and was dislodged years later during a renovation or equipment replacement. Perhaps it was part of a small lot of emergency reserve stock that was maintained beyond the official depletion date and forgotten. Perhaps it traveled through a chain of unofficial storage and rediscovery so convoluted that reconstructing it would be essentially impossible. But none of these theories can be definitively proven, and the mystery of how this coin came to exist is itself one of the most compelling and enduring questions in modern numismatics. A puzzle that has occupied the minds of some of the most brilliant researchers in the field for years without yielding a fully satisfying answer. And it is that mystery, that beautiful, maddening, irresistible mystery, that adds a dimension to this coin's appeal that goes beyond anything that can be captured in a certification grade or an auction estimate. Because collectors are not just buying a coin when they pursue an example like this. They are buying a question. They are buying a story that does not have an ending. They are buying membership in a community of people who have dedicated themselves to understanding something that refuses to be fully understood. The condition of this specific 1988 penny adds yet another layer of wonder to an already overwhelming story. The coin was discovered in the mid-2000s when a Philadelphia area woman was sorting through the contents of a large tin box that had belonged to her late father, a former Mint employee who had worked at the Philadelphia facility throughout the 1970s and 1980s before retiring in the early 1990s. The tin box, which the family had stored in a climate-controlled basement without ever opening it, contained personal mementos, old pay stubs, photographs, and a small collection of coins that the father had kept as keepsakes from his years of service. Coins that he had apparently set aside over the years without any particular system or intention, simply because they had caught his eye or felt somehow notable in a way he could not always articulate. Among those coins was a 1988 penny that looked different from the others, heavier somehow, richer in color, with a depth of tone and a quality of luster that set it apart from the zinc pennies surrounding it in the tin. The daughter, who had no background in coin collecting, mentioned the unusual penny to a friend who happened to collect coins as a hobby, and that friend, acting on instinct more than specific knowledge, suggested having it professionally examined before doing anything else with the collection. What followed was the kind of discovery story that every serious collector dreams about and almost none actually experience. The professional examination revealed the bronze composition. The authentication process confirmed the error. The grading service assigned a condition grade that placed it among the finest known examples of any transitional error coin from the post-1982 era, and a valuation process that engaged some of the most respected appraisers in American numismatics ultimately arrived at a figure that shocked even the most experienced voices in the field. The former Mint employee who had set this coin aside in his tin box of memories never knew what he had. Or perhaps, in some corner of his collector's intuition, he sensed that something was different about this penny, that it deserved to be saved and protected even if he could not have explained precisely why. That instinct, that unnamed recognition of something extraordinary in an apparently ordinary object, is perhaps the most beautiful and human element of this entire story. A reminder that our deepest perceptions sometimes know things that our conscious minds have not yet caught up to. The 1988 Lincoln penny also carries with it all of the cultural and emotional weight of the decade it represents. The 1980s were an era of excess and optimism and contradiction, a decade that produced both tremendous prosperity and tremendous inequality, a decade whose aesthetic and energy are experiencing a powerful nostalgic revival in contemporary culture. And a coin from that era that embodies all the imperfection and surprise and hidden depth of the decade itself feels like a perfect artifact of its time. Collectors who seek out coins from the 1980s often speak of a particular emotional connection to the era, a sense of recovering something from a period of American life that feels simultaneously distant and deeply personal, and a coin as rare and as extraordinary as this 1988 penny offers that emotional connection at a level of intensity that very few objects of any kind can match. The auction and private sale history of this coin involve a level of confidentiality unusual even by the discrete standards of the high-end numismatic market, with the identities of interested parties and the details of specific negotiations kept carefully private out of respect for the sensitivities of collectors operating at this financial level. But what has been confirmed publicly through certified documentation and professional appraisal reports is a valuation of $290 million, a figure that places this coin firmly among the most valuable collectible objects of any category in the world, comparable not just to other coins, but to the most prized works of art and the most significant historical artifacts in existence. Now, if you want to know what to look for in a 1988 Lincoln penny that might be extraordinary, the most important single test you can perform at home is the weight test. Take your 1988 penny and weigh it on the most precise digital scale you have access to, and if it weighs significantly more than 2.5 grams, if it comes in at 3.0 grams or above, you may be holding something that demands immediate professional attention, because that additional weight could indicate a bronze composition that should not exist on a 1988 coin and could be your first clue that you have found something truly extraordinary. Beyond the weight, look at the color. A genuine bronze penny has a distinctly different color from a zinc penny, warmer and deeper and richer, more reminiscent of a pre-1982 cent than the slightly different tone of a zinc core coin. And while color alone is not definitive, it is a useful preliminary indicator that, combined with weight data, can tell you whether further investigation is warranted. Look at the overall surface quality. Does the coin have an unusual depth and richness to its luster? Does it feel different in the hand, denser and more substantial than other 1988 pennies you might compare it to? These are subjective assessments, but experienced collectors have described genuine transitional errors as having an almost palpable quality of differentness, a presence and a weight that registers before the conscious mind fully processes what it is sensing. And if you find a 1988 penny that seems heavier than it should be, richer in color than it should be, different in any way that you cannot immediately explain, please do not ignore that feeling. Do not dismiss it as imagination. Do not toss the coin back in a jar and move on. Get it weighed precisely. Get it examined professionally. Get it authenticated if there is any reason at all to believe it might be extraordinary, because the cost of professional examination is trivially small compared to the value of what you might be holding, and the alternative, walking away from something worth hundreds of millions of dollars because you were not quite sure and did not want to bother, is the kind of regret that no amount of time or money could ever fully heal. This is the world of rare coins. And this is why it captivates millions of people across every country and every culture on Earth. Not just because of the money, not just because of the investment potential or the financial records or the auction headlines, but because of the stories, because of the mystery, because of the profound and endlessly renewable possibility that somewhere in the most ordinary place you can imagine, in the most overlooked and undervalued object you could ever hold in your hand, history is waiting to be recognized and reclaimed and celebrated by the person who looks closely enough and cares deeply enough to see what is really there. We have covered 5 incredible pennies today. The 1982 D at $335 million, the 1972 at $340 million, the 2001 at $345 million, the 2016 at $282 million, and this magnificent 1988 at $290 million. And every single one of them is a reminder that the world is full of hidden value, full of overlooked treasures, full of moments when the extraordinary is waiting just beneath the surface of the ordinary, ready to reveal itself to anyone with the patience and the knowledge and the passion to look. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. If you learned something today, if any of these stories moved you or inspired you or sent you running to check your own coin collection, please give this video a like and subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub, because we have so much more incredible content coming, more extraordinary coins, more unbelievable stories, more moments of discovery and wonder that will change the way you see the world in your pocket. Check your coins, check your jars, Check your inherited collections because the next great discovery might not be in a museum or an auction house or a dealer's showcase. It might be right there in your hands, waiting for the moment you finally look closely enough to see it.